Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Diana and this is Reiki.Love.Healing. I wanted to do a quick introduction video just to give you some background information on me and why I study Reiki and how I started studying Reiki and some of my other practices that I like to incorporate into Reiki, or more like specialties, not practices, but things that I specialize in that I like to incorporate into my Reiki practice and into my Reiki sessions. Because while I do traditional Reiki sessions where, I see a client and I put my hands over them just to see, what I'm feeling and to help them get aligned. Sometimes when I'm working with a client and I feel a specific area has a lot of heat, that tells me that that person is struggling with something. So then I start to ask a lot of questions. And because I want to get to the root cause of why that person is struggling in that particular chakra. And then, depending on the issues that they're struggling with, I will add on some other services. So maybe I'll add on an intuitive reading just to help them to have more insight into what's going on in their particular situation. Other times I offer Ayurvedic nutrition coaching, which I am also certified in, because in order to be able to work on the emotional, mental issues that are causing the disruption in your life, you have to make sure that you're eating a balanced diet. Your stomach is your other brain, and that works with the brain up here. And so if you're not consuming the right foods, it's going to be hard for you to try to heal from the traumas that you're struggling with. So I particularly specialize also in traumatic studies. And so whenever I see this, someone has a block in their chakra, right away I know that there's some kind of trauma that they experience that is creating the block, and they haven't been able to resolve those issues. So then I have some self-reflection questions that I like to ask. And I think that these questions are really good for you to use to journal about. Because in journaling, I find that you can go back to it and read it just to kind of see your progress and how far you've come. And you'll notice certain behavior patterns that you have, or even just how you perceived a situation. And sometimes it could be a little cringe because I've been there. I've gone back into some of my old journals and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I even did that or acted that way or thought that way, right? But at least it shows you that you're making progress. So my goal is to help you to heal from trauma so that your chakras are balanced. I have a couple of, mentors that I use a lot of their work in my work. For one, I've been mentored by Bessel van der Kolk. I took his traumatic studies certification course, which I love. I learned so much about how trauma affects your body, how it affects the central nervous system. It's, it's crazy how it affects your system. But once you understand this, then healing becomes a little bit more easier. The other work that I enjoy is from Caroline Myss, medical intuitive educator. She's world renowned. Her book, Anatomy of the Spirit, was the book that I read that completely changed my life. I was studying my second level Reiki course when I ran into her book, Anatomy of the Spirit. I was at the bookstore actually. I went right after a class, and I, happened to be going through the self-help aisle looking for a book, and I happened to come across that book. Like, it literally fell off of the bookshelf and grabbed my attention. And I try to be so present that little things like that, I'll notice it, and then I'll say, okay, I gotta pay attention. So I took the book, I opened it up, and I started reading the beginning part of it. Like right before you get into the chapter. I think it's like the foreword or something like that. Let me see. I have the book right here. And look, this is how I've been using this book so long. It's ripped up. But I love this book, and when I read this book, it totally changed my perspective on Reiki and how to practice. So I don't really practice the traditional way. I add things to my sessions. And this book has really helped me to understand why people don't heal from their illnesses. Yeah, it's the foreword. So that's what I was reading. So I had grabbed this book and I started reading it. And you have to read it. I'm not gonna share too much of it. And not, in no way am I paid to promote her book, but this book is just so like amazing on how it explains how the body is an energy system that records. Your body's like a computer. It just records every single thing, every single situation that has happened in your life. And it records it and it saves it, whether it's positive or negative. So you know how sometimes you listen to a song and you get goosebumps and you're like, oh my God, like it brings you back to that place, or like it reminds you of something wonderful that happened to you. Like, for example, when you hear the graduation theme song, right, it reminds you of when you graduated school, or maybe you were the first to graduate college in your family, and you hear that song and it gives you goosebumps, right? So that's an example of like your body recording everything. So I read her book and I was just blown away by the information that was in there. And I just read it and took notes, and reading other works of other people, like Bessel van der Kolk, to kind of supplement what I was reading. And studying the laws of attraction, studying the works of Abraham Hicks and Neville Goddard, just, also studying the science of Kundalini and why chanting is so important. So I kind of, went through this crazy journey, but when I found this book, it just really opened my eyes. And then it had me reflecting on my own personal life. And one of the things that I talk about a lot on my platform is women being stuck in their masculine energy. And the reason why I talk about that is because I myself was stuck in my masculine energy for so long. And that comes from trauma. It comes from childhood trauma. When you grow up in a dysfunctional family, and maybe you grew up with just your mother, right? I'll use that as an example because that's what happened with me. I grew up with my mother, and I saw her handle everything. She was the one that went to school. She worked, she had to pay the bills. She did everything. When my stepfather came over, she cooked, she served him dinner. She was always, the one who served everyone. So I remember that. And so for me, and then on top of it, I was kicked out of the house at the age of 14. So I was already on the street, couch surfing, for a little bit until one of my high school friends' mom took me in. And that woman, I would say, was a blessing in disguise. Sorry for all the noise. I wanted to do my makeup while I talk. She took me in when I was like 14. I lived with her till about, I was 19. So like when I was 19. So, yeah. And so what happens is when that happens to you, if you were left on the street and you're taking care of yourself, you go into survival mode and you do what you have to do to survive sometimes, right? You get a job, you know, ask somebody if you could stay with them, or you know, you're just trying to figure out how to survive. Really, I was 14. I didn't know that much, but it did have my intuition, and I did get a feeling about people. I didn't understand it too much, like why did I get those feelings, but I always knew I was right about people. So I met this woman, and through my friend, high school friend, it was his mom, and she invited me to move in with them. And when she heard my story, one day we cut school and I went to go stay with her. And she said, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're so young." She said, "I have an extra bedroom. You can come live with me." And so that's what I did. I had got a good sense of her, and I was like, okay, I think I can. Because at the time I was like, my best friend was letting me stay in her house. And then some days she would ask her cousin if I could stay in her house. And so I was kind of going back and forth in that way. And it's awkward. And so because of that trauma I experienced, right, and I had to fend for myself and I had to figure things out on my own, it kind of threw me into my masculine energy, protecting, right? I had to protect, I had to provide, and then I became a mother. So it threw me even more into my masculine energy. So now I have another person I have to feed, and now what happens is you start looking for work. Sometimes you take on masculine jobs because you know they're going to pay more. Sometimes you take on multiple jobs. And so for me, I was just trying to do as much as I could. And I was on public assistance. I wanted to get off, so I thought the answer was for me to go to college. I go to college, and then I ended up becoming a police officer. And I made great money doing that. But then in the interim, what happened, because I didn't have a very strong father figure in my life to help me understand men, and or even their role and what my role should be. I ended up in relationships with guys who were stuck in their feminine energy. And so that really didn't turn out well for me, because it was like one, you know, broken relationship after another. And so I got to a point where I just really got tired of it and decided that I am going to not date anyone until I figure this whole thing out. And that's what I did. So when I started studying this book, Anatomy of the Spirit, and I started, you know, reading how it starts in the root chakra. Your root chakra is connected to the power of family. And if you don't come from a strong family who has healthy social, emotional behaviors, where there's a strong sense of loyalty, right? Respect, things like that, a strong family culture, you're you're going to have so many problems in your life. You're going to have problems in relationships with other people. You're going to have problems, with yourself, like not really liking yourself because of maybe the things that you do or the mistakes that you make, or maybe the fact that people don't treat you with respect because you don't come from a strong family. So usually people who come from a dysfunctional family or whose family don't have their back are the ones that are bullied, because people know that no one has their back, right? Or men know, some men who want to take advantage will know, oh, she's not, she doesn't have a father in her life or a big brother, so I can take advantage of her. Like, people actually think this. So this is the stuff that I studied, and it helped me to understand why I was stuck in my masculine energy. It helped me to understand why I had a bad relationship with money, because that's another thing. If you grow up in poverty, and you grew up and you saw your parents struggle for money, or they always made comments like, they're starving kids in Africa, you need to eat all your food, shut that light off, money doesn't grow on trees, we can't afford that. If you grew up with that, you're gonna believe that there is a scarcity of money, and you're gonna have very bad money practices. You're not gonna know how to handle money. So that's what happened with me. I didn't have very good practices with money, and I always thought that money was scarce. So I always found myself struggling with money up until I started studying Kundalini, and I learned the power of chanting and doing mantras and mudras. And that changed my whole perspective on money and attracting abundance into my life. And so then I was able to heal from that specific issue. But then came, healing from family, healing from family issues. And that sometimes could be hard, because you want to be able to have a conversation with people, with your parents, with, any other relatives that you have issues with. But then when people are stuck in their ways and they don't want to take accountability for the role that they played, then it becomes very difficult, and you kind of have to distance yourself and just seek your own closure and just work on yourself. And that's kind of, how I see things, what spirituality has taught me. So I don't necessarily need to have a conversation with people, especially if I see that you're not really on that path to wanting to heal from anything. It becomes just very difficult. So I just continue to read this book over and over again. Every time I read it, I always learn something different. And I started using the book as a way to start my healing journey, like really go deep into, because I thought I was healed. I thought, go to therapy, I know what the issues are, I think I'm good. But no, you'll have situations come into your life, and then you'll be triggered by them. And then you're like, oh no, I have so much more work that I need to do. So, but at least, if you're in that place where you're willing to do the work, and it's a progress, right? It's a process. It's not something that's gonna, really fix overnight, even though I do believe that if you really want to heal, you can. It just depends on where you're at in your healing process, where your thought process is, what you believe in. Because I believe that as soon as you want to be okay with the situation, you can do that as quickly as you want to. It doesn't have to take years, months, years, centuries. It doesn't. You can pretty much make it happen quickly. So that was my journey. And along that journey, like I said, I noticed this you know, phenomena of women being stuck in their masculine energy and doing what men should be doing. And if you're not healing, you're not recognizing that you're in your masculine energy. And so that's something that I talk about a lot in my work. So as you're healing, we'll also address those issues. If I notice that you are stuck in your masculine energy, I'll bring that to your attention, and that's something that you can work on. And that's a matter of just creating boundaries for yourself. Once you work on your own stuff, right? You work on healing from your stuff, from your childhood, and you know that you're not to blame, it's not your fault. You can you'll see that your confidence is a lot stronger, you have self-esteem, and you're not afraid to set boundaries with people. You'll say no. And you also know that it gets to be a very lonely journey, because the more you elevate, the more you evolve, you're going to notice people exiting your life. Like, either you'll get rid of them or they'll stop talking to you, but you'll notice that you're not compatible with them anymore. So it's like, I don't think we really need to talk. I think we can distance ourselves, part ways at this point, right? So let me tell you, I've seen that, when I was doing the work, I noticed how people weren't in my life anymore. They were just exiting. I'd get into an argument with them and they'd be so mad at me, they wouldn't want to talk to me anymore. Or I would just stop talking to them. And I would be okay with it. Totally okay, because I don't mind letting people be who they want to be. You can, whatever you want to do, if you value the relationship and you want to be in my life, okay, great. But if you don't want to, I'm not going to force anybody. But it got, pretty quiet. My phone was drying up. And but then I noticed how I would attract people who were like on the same journey as me. And no, do I talk to them all the time? No, because we're doing, our thing, right? We're doing our thing. But I noticed that that would happen. I would attract other empaths, other Reiki practitioners who totally understood where I was coming from, totally understood. And that's nice, right? When you're in a community like that where people actually get you. And then sometimes I had to leave that community. Sometimes it served its purpose and then I had to go, because then it started becoming a little too toxic. And when an environment becomes toxic, I just exit, because I don't need any of that. So that's kind of been my journey. I've practiced a lot of different things just to kind of understand them. I was in a Wiccan coven, and it was a beautiful practice, not what people think, but you do learn divination. I was pushed to learn other methods of divination, and this is how you learn your skill. This is how you learn your skill. So this is how I learned that I could read tarot. Also, you learn about different civilizations and the gods and goddesses of those civilizations. You learn poetry. You learn about the earth and the moon cycles and when's the best time to garden. So there's a really beautiful side of the Wiccan culture. We celebrated Sabbaths. So that was pretty nice too. And then, sometimes people abuse it, and then there's that dark side where they want to use certain spells to do dark things to people. And I believe in karma, so I believe that you have to be aware of your actions. And also, when I started studying numerology, I learned that I'm an 8 life path. And when you're an 8 life path, you have to live a righteous life. You have to. Because karma is very like strong with you if you're an 8 life path. Karma is very strong with you, and you will get your karma. If you do something bad to someone, you will get your karma almost instantly. Like instantly it comes to you. But also on the other side, if someone tries to do you dirty, they will get their karma. And I've seen that happen to people who have tried to hurt me. I've seen them get their karma pretty quick. It's like, wow, right? Out of nowhere. It's crazy. So, numerology, I think, is something that everyone should be practicing. Learn how to use it for your benefit. If you want to make moves, numerology is something that you should be practicing. Um, I'm not very much into crystals. I do have some crystals that I work with when I do Reiki healing. But I was heavily into them, but then I kind of backed off into them. But I like to do Reiki healing for different purposes, for different issues that you have. Um, when I do my readings, I always try to scan your aura to see which chakra do you need to focus on the most. Um, so yeah, music I think is important too. If you know solfeggio tones, I think they're important to listen to for healing. I use them to heal myself. I'm a personal chef, and I one time I suffered a second degree oil burn on my hand, on my whole hand. It was like my whole hand, like all of this. I it, I burned it, and it was like right in the middle of service. And I used to work for a well-known attorney, and he had a special dinner one night, and I was just like, oh my god, it burned my hand, and I cannot leave. And I went, I didn't want to go to the emergency room because I knew they were just going to give me an ointment, and my hand was bubbling up. And so what I ended up doing, because I had studied spices, roots, and herbs, I made a paste with turmeric, and I spent like a whole week every day. My hand was wrapped in the turmeric paste, and at night I would listen to solfeggio tones, the 528 solfeggio tones. And while I was told it would take 3 months for my hand to heal and I would have a really bad scar, using the turmeric and listening to the solfeggio tones every night, my hand healed within a week and a half to 2 weeks. And what happened is it bubbled up, like my hand bubbled up. Once all that liquid came out, my skin kind of shriveled up, and that's when you have that like wrinkly, shiny burn mark. Well, what happened was the turmeric, because it regenerates your cells, it was peeling off all of that skin. So new skin was coming up. And my hand was like really sensitive at that time because I mean, it's like a whole layer of skin coming off, but like new skin was coming back in. And so you couldn't tell that I even had a burn on my hand or a scar. You couldn't even tell because all of that skin just came off. So my hand healed. So that's the other thing. I studied roots and herbs, and I love working with them because they have their magical properties to them. Um, Roots and herbs can be masculine or feminine. They also correlate with the elements: fire, water, air, earth, and they correlate with planets. So, depending on what your planet is, there's a combination of herbs that you can be taking to help you to heal from whatever you're struggling with. So, my favorite, because I'm a fire sign, I'm a Leo, and my sun sign, my planet is the sun. Any herbs whose planet is the sun, I work with them. If it's a fire sign, element, I work with it. If it's feminine, I work with it. Unless I need that masculine energy for something, then I'll take it. If I need strength and energy, I'm going to use that masculine herb for that. So so those are all the things that I do, that I learn, that I've, you know, incorporated into my Reiki practice. So I hope this was informative. And if you have any other questions for me, please just send me an email. Right now, I'm mostly on my YouTube and TikTok platform. I also have Pinterest, which I'm going to start focusing on as well. And I have a website. So if you want to check out my website, www.Reiki.Love.Healing.com. You can always reach out to me if you're interested in a session, a private session, or Reiki life coaching, or if you are interested in Ayurvedic nutrition coaching as well. Or I can combine any services into a nice little package for you. Just reach out and we can always have a quick conversation to talk about the things that you need. But don't forget to follow and share. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.